Document 1, Part 1, Far Away in the Future. In the year 2347, humanity had spread its wings far beyond Earth. People lived on dozens of planets scattered across many star systems. Some worlds were lush and green, while others were barren wastelands. But no matter where they went, humans always sought something valuable, something worth mining, trading, or studying. One such place was Deltaning, a small, unremarkable outpost located at the edge of human-controlled space. Deltaning wasn't glamorous. It didn't have towering cities or bustling markets. Instead, it was a dusty, rocky planet with little to offer except minerals buried deep beneath its surface. Most people who lived there were miners or engineers, working long hours in harsh conditions. Among them was Jack Harper, a quiet man who preferred machines to conversations. Jack wasn't someone you'd notice in a crowd. He was average in height, with short brown hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. But he was good at what he did, and that's all that mattered to him. Jack spent most of his days fixing broken equipment, or maintaining the massive drills used to extract minerals from the planet's crust. The work was hard, but it paid well. Enough for him to live comfortably. More importantly, it kept him busy. Ever since his family passed away years ago, Jack had learned to avoid thinking too much about the past. Work gave him purpose, even if it wasn't the kind of purpose that inspired songs or stories. One day, as Jack descended into one of the deepest tunnels on Deltaning, he noticed something strange. The drill he was sent to repair had stopped working, not because of mechanical failure, but because it had hit something unusual, a large, glowing object embedded in the rock. At first glance it looked like a crystal, but it pulsed faintly with an inner light, casting eerie shadows on the walls of the tunnel. Jack stared at it for a moment, unsure of what to do. He'd never seen anything like it before. Curiosity got the better of him. Using his tools, Jack carefully chipped away at the surrounding rock until the object was fully exposed. It was roughly the size of a basketball, smooth and perfectly symmetrical. As he touched it, a sudden warmth spread through his fingers, followed by a strange sensation in his mind, as though the object was alive and trying to communicate with him. Jack pulled his hand back quickly, startled. For a moment, he considered leaving it there and reporting it to his supervisor. But something about the artifact drew him in, almost as if it wanted him to take it with him. After wrapping it in a protective cloth, Jack carried the object back to the surface. News of his discovery spread quickly through the outpost. By the time he reached the main facility, a crowd had gathered, eager to see what he had found. Some whispered excitedly about treasure or alien technology, while others warned of danger, reminding everyone of old stories about cursed artifacts. Jack ignored them all and handed the object over to Dr. Lisa Monroe. The lead scientist stationed at Delta-9. Lisa was different from most of the people on the outpost. While others focused on mining and profit, she spent her days studying the stars and searching for answers to questions no one else cared about. She was in her early 30s, with curly black hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. When Jack placed the artifact in her hands, she immediately recognized its importance. This isn't natural," she said softly, turning it over in her palms. "It's too perfect, too precise. Whatever this is, it's artificial." Over the next few days, Lisa ran every test she could think of, examining the artifact's composition, energy output, and structure. Meanwhile, Jack returned to his usual routine, trying to put the whole thing out of his mind. But something strange began happening to him. At night, he started having vivid dreams unlike anything he'd ever experienced. In these dreams, he saw stars moving in patterns, galaxies colliding, and vast energies swirling through the cosmos. Each dream felt more real than the last, as though he were witnessing events unfolding in distant parts of the universe. At first, Jack dismissed the dreams as stress or exhaustion, but then he began noticing changes in himself during the day. Simple tasks became easier, almost effortless. He could lift heavy equipment without straining, fix complex machinery with barely a thought, and even sense when something was wrong before it happened. His coworkers noticed too, commenting on how quickly he completed jobs that used to take hours. Jack tried to brush it off, saying he was just getting better at his work. But deep down, he knew something was different. One evening, after finishing his shift, Jack decided to visit Lisa in her lab. She had been working non-stop since receiving the artifact, rarely sleeping or eating. Her office was cluttered with notes, diagrams, and holographic projections displaying data from her experiments. When Jack entered, she looked up, her eyes bloodshot but shining with excitement. "I've made progress," she said, gesturing for him to sit down. "This artifact, it's emitting some kind of energy field. I think it's interacting with your brain." "What do you mean?" Jack asked, frowning. "I mean, whatever this thing is, it's affecting you. Your abilities, they're not random. They're connected to the artifact. It's like, it's unlocking something inside you." Lisa hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Jack, I think this might be bigger than we imagined. This artifact could hold the key to understanding powers we've only dreamed of." Jack listened silently, his mind racing. He wanted to believe Lisa, but the idea of having superhuman abilities scared him. What if he lost control? What if the artifact was dangerous? Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Red lights flashed, and voices shouted over the intercom system. Something was wrong. Rushing outside, Jack and Lisa saw smoke rising from the direction of the main power station. A group of workers ran toward them, shouting about explosions and fires. Chaos erupted as everyone scrambled to figure out what had caused the disaster. Amid the confusion, Jack realized something important. The artifact was missing from Lisa's lab. Panic gripped him as he turned to Lisa. "Where is it?" he demanded. Her face paled. "I don't know. I left it on my desk." Before they could say more, another explosion rocked the ground beneath their feet. This time, it came from the direction of the artifact storage room. Jack didn't need to ask what was happening. Somehow, the artifact had activated, and its energy was spreading uncontrollably. Without hesitation, he ran toward the source, determined to stop whatever was causing the destruction. As he approached the storage room, Jack felt the same warmth he'd experienced when he first touched the artifact, only this time, it was stronger, overwhelming. The air crackled with electricity, and the walls glowed with an otherworldly light. Standing in the doorway, Jack saw the artifact floating in midair, spinning slowly as waves of energy radiated outward. Around it, pieces of equipment shattered, and metal warped, as though caught in an invisible storm. For a brief moment, fear paralyzed Jack. Then, instinct took over. Reaching out with his mind, he focused on the artifact, willing it to stop. To his amazement, the spinning slowed, and the energy waves began to fade. The chaos subsided, leaving behind a stunned silence. Breathing heavily, Jack collapsed too. His knees, exhausted, but alive. When Lisa arrived, moments later, she found him sitting beside the artifact, which now lay motionless on the floor. "You did it," she whispered, awe evident in her voice. "You controlled it." Jack shook his head, still trying to process what had happened. "I don't know how I did it," he admitted. "But one thing's for sure, we can't ignore this anymore. Whatever this thing is, it's changed me. And it's going to change everything." End of Document 1. Document 2. Part 2. The days that followed the incident at Delta 9 were anything but ordinary. News of the artifact and Jack's role in controlling its destructive energy spread like wildfire across the outpost. People whispered about what had happened, their voices tinged with awe, fear, and suspicion. Some saw Jack as a hero, while others viewed him as a potential threat. No one could deny, however, that something extraordinary was unfolding, and it centered around him, Dr. Lisa. Monroe became even more determined to understand the artifact after witnessing Jack's abilities firsthand. She spent every waking moment analyzing the object, running tests, and poring over data. Her small lab quickly transformed into a chaotic mess of wires, monitors, and glowing holograms displaying complex equations. Despite her exhaustion, Lisa's eyes burned with intensity. She knew they were on the verge of discovering something monumental, something that could redefine humanity's place in the universe. For Jack, life had changed in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. The strange sensations he'd felt after touching the artifact continued to grow stronger. He noticed subtle shifts in his perception details, others overlooked, seemed glaringly obvious to him. Colors appeared brighter, sounds clearer, and emotions more vivid. It wasn't just physical strength or speed anymore. His mind felt sharper, as if a fog had lifted from his thoughts. At first, these changes fascinated him, but soon they began to unsettle him. He worried about losing control, about becoming something he didn't recognize. One evening, as Lisa worked late into the night, she made a breakthrough. Hidden within the artifact's intricate patterns was a sequence of symbols that resembled an ancient language. Though fragmented and incomplete, the symbols hinted at a message, a warning, perhaps, or a guide. Using advanced translation software, Lisa pieced together fragments of the text. What she uncovered sent chills down her spine. It talks about a civilization. Lisa explained to Jack the next morning, her voice trembling with excitement. A civilization so advanced they ruled entire galaxies. But she hesitated, glancing at the artifact resting on her desk. But they destroyed themselves. Their power, it consumed them. Jack frowned, leaning forward in his chair. What does that mean for us? I don't know yet, Lisa admitted. But there's more. The artifact isn't just a relic, it's a key. A key to unlocking knowledge, technology, maybe even powers beyond our imagination. That's why it reacted to you, Jack. You're connected to it somehow. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Jack stared at the artifact, his mind racing. He wanted to believe this discovery could help humanity, but the warnings in the text gnawed at him. If such immense power had destroyed an entire civilization, how could anyone be sure it wouldn't do the same to them? As if sensing his unease, Lisa placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We'll figure this out together, she said firmly. You're not alone in this. Despite her reassurance, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. His instincts proved right when Commander Ryan Collins arrived at Deltanine 2 days later. Collins was a tall, imposing man with graying hair and a nonsense demeanor. As head of Earth's Interstellar Defense Force IDF, he commanded respect and fear. His presence meant only one thing. The artifact had attracted attention far beyond the outpost. Collins wasted no time getting to the point. Gathered in Lisa's lab, he addressed Jack and Lisa bluntly. This artifact represents a significant security risk, he said, his tone cold and authoritative. If word gets out about its capabilities or yours, Mr. Harper, it could destabilize human-controlled space. We need to secure it immediately. Jack stiffened, his jaw tightening. Secure it? You mean take it away from here? That's correct, Collins replied. And you'll be coming with us. Your connection to the artifact makes you invaluable to our research efforts. Lisa stepped forward, her expression defiant. With all due respect, Commander, we're still studying the artifact. Moving it now could jeopardize everything we've learned so far. Collins's gaze hardened. Dr. Monroe, I appreciate your dedication, but this is bigger than science. This is about protecting humanity. If other factions or worse, alien species find out about this, we'll have a full-scale crisis on our hands. Jack listened silently, torn between anger and fear. On one hand, he understood Collins's concerns. The artifact's power was undeniable, and keeping it hidden might prevent conflict. On the other hand, handing it over to the IDF felt like surrendering control to people who might misuse it. He glanced at Lisa, silently seeking her advice. She met his gaze, her eyes filled with determination. "Commander," she said carefully, "what if we compromise? Let us continue our research under strict supervision. If Jack agrees to cooperate, I can ensure the artifact remains safe while we uncover its secrets." Collins considered this for a moment, his sharp eyes narrowing. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, but let me be clear. Any attempt to withhold information or resist IDF authority will result in immediate action. Do I make myself clear?" "Crystal," Lisa replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. As Collins left the lab, Jack exhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair. "Do you really think this is going to work?" he asked quietly. "We don't have much choice," Lisa admitted. "But as long as we stay one step ahead, we can keep the art you save." Over the next few days, life at Deltanine grew increasingly tense. IDF personnel arrived in droves, setting up surveillance equipment and restricting access to sensitive areas. Jack found himself under constant scrutiny, his every move monitored. While the scientists continued their work, progress slowed under the watchful eyes of military overseers. Frustration simmered among the team, but Lisa urged everyone to remain patient. Meanwhile, Jack's abilities continued to evolve. At night, he experienced more vivid dreams that felt less like visions and more like memories. In one dream, he stood on a planet bathed in golden light, surrounded by towering structures that hummed with energy. Figures moved around him, their faces obscured, speaking in a language he didn't understand. Yet somehow, he grasped their meaning. They were showing him how to harness the artifact's power. When he woke, Jack realized he could sense the artifact's presence, even from a distance. It called to him, urging him to return. Conflicted, he confided in Lisa, who listened intently before offering her thoughts. "It's teaching you," she said thoughtfully. "The artifact isn't just reacting to you, it's guiding you. Whatever those dreams are, they're part of the process." Though intrigued, Jack remained cautious. What if it's manipulating me? What if it's trying to turn me into something else? Lisa hesitated, then smiled softly. "Maybe it is, but remember, Jack, you're the one choosing how to use its power. That's what makes you different." Her words offered some comfort, but Jack couldn't ignore the growing sense of urgency. The artifact's energy seemed to pulse stronger. Each day, as though building toward something. He wondered if it was reaching out to others, calling to them across the stars, and if it was, who or what would answer. One afternoon, while reviewing data with Lisa, Jack noticed something unusual on one of the monitors. A faint signal emanated from the artifact, barely detectable but unmistakably present. It wasn't random noise. It was a pattern, rhythmic and deliberate. "Lisa," he said urgently, pointing to the screen. "Look at this." She leaned closer, her brow furrowing as she analyzed the signal. After a moment, her face paled. "It's a transmission," she whispered. "The artifact is sending a message." "To whom?" Jack asked, dread creeping into his voice. Lisa shook her head, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know, but whoever it is, they're out there, and they're listening." End of Document 2. Document 3, Part 3. The discovery of the artifact's transmission sent shockwaves through Deltanine. Lisa and Jack spent hours analyzing the signal, trying to decipher its meaning. The pattern was complex, almost musical in its rhythm, but it carried an undeniable sense of purpose. It wasn't random noise, it was a message, carefully crafted and directed outward into the vastness of space. As they worked, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the artifact was alive in some way. It wasn't just an object. It seemed to have a will of its own, guiding events in ways he didn't fully understand. Every time he touched it or even came near it, he felt a strange connection, as though it were speaking directly to him. The sensation was both exhilarating and terrifying. He wondered if the artifact was using him more, if he was using it. Either way, the line between man and machine, human and alien, was beginning to blur. Lisa shared his unease, but tried to stay focused. "We need to figure out who or what is receiving this signal," she said one evening, her voice tense with urgency. "If we don't, we might be inviting trouble." Jack nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. What if it's already too late? What if someone or something has already heard us? His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. They both knew the risks. Humanity had expanded across the stars, but it wasn't alone. Other civilizations existed out there, some far older and more advanced than humans. If the artifact's signal reached them, it could draw attention humanity might not be ready for. Despite their fears, they pressed on. Lisa managed to isolate fragments of the transmission and cross-reference them with known galactic frequencies. To her surprise, the signal matched patterns associated with ancient star maps. These maps depicted regions of space, long abandoned by modern civilizations, places shrouded in myth and legend. One name kept appearing in the data, the Vorthan. Jack had never heard of them before, but Lisa's face turned pale when she saw the name. "The Vorthan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy." "Why?" Jack asked, leaning closer. "They're warriors," Lisa explained, her hands trembling slightly as she scrolled through historical records. "Centuries ago, they ruled large parts of the galaxy through conquest. Their empire collapsed, but they didn't disappear. Instead, they became nomads, wandering from system to system, destroying anything they see as a threat. If they think humanity is dangerous, they won't hesitate to attack." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "And you think they'll come here because of the artifact?" "It's possible," Lisa admitted. "The signal is strong enough to travel across light years. If the Vorthan detect it tanned, if they trace it back to us, we're in serious trouble." Before they could discuss it further, Commander Collins arrived, flanked by 2 IDF officers. His expression was grim, and his tone left no room for argument. "I've been informed about your findings," he said, fixing Lisa with a steely glare. "This changes everything." Lisa swallowed hard but stood her ground. "Commander, we need to prepare. If the Vorthan are coming, we can't afford to wait around. We have to act now." Collins nodded curtly, agreed. "But first, I want every detail of your research. No exceptions." For the next several hours, Lisa and Jack briefed Collins and his team on everything they'd discovered. They explained the artifact's origins, its connection to Jack, and the potential threat posed by the Vorthan. Collins listened intently, his face unreadable. When they finished, he turned to Jack. "You're our best chance at defending ourselves," he said bluntly. "Your abilities make you uniquely qualified to handle whatever comes next." Jack bristled at the idea of being treated like a weapon, but he knew Collins was right. Whether he liked it or not, his powers made him central to humanity's survival. Still, the thought of facing an alien race as ruthless as the Vorthan filled him with dread. As the days passed, preparations intensified. IDF reinforcements poured into Deltanine, transforming the once quiet outpost into a military stronghold. Defensive systems were upgraded, weapons stockpiled, and evacuation plans drawn up. Meanwhile, Lisa continued her work, determined to unlock more of the artifact's secrets. She believed understanding its true purpose could give humanity an edge in the looming conflict. Jack, however, struggled to adapt to his new role. The pressure weighed heavily on him, and his abilities grew stronger and harder to control. During training exercises, he accidentally caused equipment to malfunction or injured soldiers by misjudging his strength. Each mistake chipped away at his confidence, leaving him questioning whether he was truly ready for what lay ahead. One night, unable to sleep, Jack wandered to the lab where the artifact was stored. It pulsed softly in the dim light, its energy humming faintly in the air. He stared at it, torn between fascination and fear. Slowly, he reached out, letting his fingers brush against its surface. Instantly, warmth surged through him, followed by a flood of images and emotions. He saw battles raging across distant worlds, fleets of ships clashing in fiery explosions. He heard screams of pain and cries of victory, felt the weight of countless lives lost, and then, amidst the chaos, he saw himself not as he was now, but as he could become, stronger, faster, unstoppable. For a moment, the vision filled him with hope, but then he noticed something darker lurking beneath the surface, a shadowy figure watching from afar, waiting for the right moment to strike. Startled, Jack pulled his hand away, breaking the connection. His heart raced as he stumbled backward, gasping for breath. Whatever the artifact had shown him, it wasn't just a glimpse of the future, it was a warning. The next morning, Jack confided in Lisa about the vision. She listened quietly, her expression thoughtful. "It's testing you," she said finally, "pushing you to see how far you can go. But remember, Jack, the artifact isn't the only thing shaping your destiny. You still have a choice." Her words offered some comfort, but Jack couldn't shake the image of the shadowy figure. Who or what was it? Was it an enemy? Or was it something within him, waiting to emerge? As tensions mounted, so did the stakes. Reports began filtering in from nearby colonies of strange activity in deep space, unidentified ships, moving toward human-controlled territory. Though unconfirmed, many suspected the Vorthene were on the move. Time was running out. In a desperate bid to gain the upper hand, Lisa proposed a bold plan. Using the artifact's energy, she hoped to create a shield capable of protecting Earth and its colonies from invasion. It was a risky endeavor, requiring precise calculations and Jack's full cooperation. Failure could result in catastrophic consequences. Jack hesitated, unsure if he trusted himself or the artifact to pull it off. But when he looked at Lisa, he saw determination in her eyes. She believed in him, even when he doubted himself. Taking a deep breath, he nodded. "Let's do it," he said firmly. Over the next few days, Lisa and her team worked tirelessly to implement the plan. Jack practiced channeling the artifact's energy, learning to focus his abilities with greater precision. It wasn't easy. Each attempt left him drained and disoriented, but slowly, he began to improve, gaining confidence with every success. Finally, the day came to put the plan into action. As Jack stood before the artifact, surrounded by scientists and IDF personnel, he felt a mix of fear and resolve. This was it, the moment everything hinged on. Closing his eyes, he reached out with his mind, connecting to the artifact's power. Energy surged through him, brighter and stronger than ever before. For a brief moment, he felt invincible, but then something unexpected happened. The artifact's energy spiked uncontrollably, flooding the room with blinding light. Alarms blared, and voices shouted in panic. Jack struggled to regain control, but the power was overwhelming. Just as he thought he might lose himself completely, a familiar voice echoed in his mind. "Focus." It was Lisa. Her calm, steady presence cut through the chaos, grounding him. Drawing on her strength, Jack refocused his efforts, directing the energy outward. Slowly, the light dimmed, and the surge subsided. When it was over, everyone stared in awe at what they had created, a shimmering barrier, enveloping Deltanine, pulsing with the artifact's energy. Though exhausted, Jack allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. Against all odds, they had succeeded. But as he glanced at Lisa, he saw worry etched on her face. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "The real test is yet to come." End of Document 3. Document 4. Part 4. The Shield Created by Jack and Lisa. was a marvelous shimmering dome of energy that surrounded Deltanine, protecting it from any external threat. At first glance, it seemed like a triumph, proof that humanity could stand its ground against even the most dangerous adversaries. But as the hours passed, cracks began to show both in the shield itself and in the fragile unity holding the outpost together. For starters, maintaining the shield required constant effort. The artifact's energy wasn't infinite, and every second it powered the barrier drained Jack's strength. Though he tried to hide it, his body betrayed him. Dark circles formed under his eyes, his hands trembled, and his movements became sluggish. Lisa noticed immediately, but chose not to say anything, knowing there was no time for rest. Instead, she worked tirelessly alongside her team, searching for ways to stabilize the shield without relying solely on Jack. Meanwhile, tensions between the scientists and the IDF escalated. Commander Collins had taken control of the situation, declaring martial law across Deltanine. Soldiers patrolled the halls, enforcing strict curfews and limiting access to key areas, including the lab where the artifact was stored. Many of the outpost's residents resented this heavy-handed approach, viewing it as an overreach of authority. Some whispered about rebellion, while others simply grumbled under their breath. Too afraid to speak openly, Jack found himself caught in the middle of the growing divide. On one side were his friends and colleagues, who believed the artifact should remain under civilian oversight. On the other was Collins, who saw it as a weapon and Jack as its operator. Neither side trusted the other, and the strain weighed heavily on Jack. He wanted to help everyone, but he couldn't please both groups at once. One evening, after another exhausting day of powering the shield, Jack sat alone in the lab, staring at the artifact. Its glow pulsed softly, almost soothingly, but the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. He wondered how much longer he could keep going. How long before the artifact's power consumed him entirely? "You look like you haven't slept in days," a voice said behind him, startled. Jack turned to see Alex Carter standing in the doorway. Alex was one of the few people Jack still considered a friend, despite everything that had changed, a mechanic. By trade, Alex had always been easygoing and quick with a joke. Now, however, his face was grim. "I'm fine," Jack muttered, forcing a weak smile. "Just tired." Alex crossed the room and leaned against the table, folding his arms. "You don't have to pretend with me. Jack, I know what they're doing to you, Collins and the IDF. They're using you like some kind of tool." "It's not like that," Jack protested, though even he didn't fully believe his own words. "They need my help. We all do." "Maybe," Alex said, his tone softening, "but at what cost? You're pushing yourself too hard. What happens if you burn out or worse?" Jack didn't answer. He knew Alex was right, but admitting it aloud felt like giving up. Instead, he changed the subject. "How are things outside?" "Not great," Alex admitted. "People are scared. They don't trust the IDF, and they're starting to blame you for bringing all this trouble here." "That's not fair," Jack snapped, anger flaring despite his exhaustion. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know you didn't," Alex replied quickly, holding up his hands in defense. "Older brother figure, I'm not saying you did, but you can't ignore how people feel. They're scared, Jack, and fear makes people do stupid things." As if to prove Alex's point, shouts erupted. From outside the lab, both men rushed to the window and saw a crowd gathering near the main entrance of the facility. Soldiers stood guard, their weapons drawn, while civilians shouted demands and accusations. Someone held up a makeshift sign that read, "Give us answers." "This is bad," Alex muttered, turning back to Jack. "If something doesn't change soon, this place is going to tear itself apart." Before Jack could respond, Lisa burst into the lab, her face pale with panic. "We have a problem," she said breathlessly. "The shield, it's destabilizing." "What?" Jack exclaimed, leaping to his feet. "How?" I don't know yet, Lisa admitted, pulling up data on one of the monitors. But if we don't fix it soon, the entire system could collapse. Without hesitation, Jack moved toward the artifact, preparing to channel more energy into the shield. But Lisa stopped him, grabbing his arm. You can't keep doing this, she insisted. You're killing yourself, Jack. There has to be another way. There isn't, Jack shot back, shaking off her grip. If I don't hold it together, we're all dead. Lisa hesitated, torn between her concern for Jack and the urgent need to save Deltanine. Finally, she nodded reluctantly. Okay. But let me monitor you closely. If I see signs of overload, I'm shutting it down, no matter what. Jack didn't argue. He closed his eyes and focused, drawing on the artifact's power once again. This time, the surge was stronger, almost overwhelming. Pain shot through his body as raw energy coursed through him, threatening to consume him whole. Through gritted teeth, he forced himself to concentrate, stabilizing the shield just as alarms blared throughout the facility. When it was over, Jack collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His vision blurred, and his limbs felt like lead. Lisa knelt beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and dread. That was too close, she whispered. You can't keep doing this, Jack. We need a better solution. I know, Jack rasped, struggling to catch his breath. But until we find one, this is all we've got. As the night wore on, the unrest outside grew worse. Protesters clashed with soldiers, and the sound of breaking glass echoed through the corridors. Chaos reigned, and it became clear that Deltanine was on the brink of collapse, not from an alien invasion, but from within. Commander Collins appeared in the lab shortly after midnight, his face grim. We need to evacuate, he announced without preamble. This outpost is compromised. If we stay, we risk losing everything, including the artifact. No, Lisa said sharply, stepping forward. If we leave now, we abandon all our research. We lose our chance to understand the artifact and prepare for the Vorthian. And if we stay, we lose our lives, Collins countered. Is that what you want? It's not about what I want, Lisa snapped, her frustration boiling over. It's about survival. Running away won't solve anything. We need to face this head on. Collins stared at her for a long moment, then turned to Jack. What do you think, Harper? Are you willing to gamble everything on a theory? Jack hesitated, torn between loyalty to Lisa and the practicality of Collins's plan. Finally, he spoke. We can't run forever. If we leave now, we'll only delay the inevitable. Let's give it one more day. If we can't stabilize the shield by then, we'll go. Collins considered this, then nodded curtly. One day, that's all you get. As Collins left the lab, Lisa turned to Jack, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, she said softly. I know. This isn't easy for you. It's not easy for anyone, Jack replied, forcing a weak smile. But we're in this together. Whatever happens next, we'll face it as a team. Little did they know, the true test was yet to come. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Vorthan fleet was closing in, drawn by the artifact's signal. Humanity's fate hung in the balance, and Jack would soon discover whether he was truly ready to wield the power entrusted to him, or if it would destroy him first. End of Document 4. Document 5. Part 5. The next morning brought no relief to Deltanine. The tension was thicker than ever, and the air buzzed with unease. Soldiers patrolled the corridors, their boots echoing ominously against the metal floors. Civilians huddled together in small groups, whispering anxiously about what might happen next. Outside, the shield flickered intermittently, casting eerie flashes of light across the barren landscape. It was a grim reminder of how fragile their protection really was. Jack woke up on a cot in the corner of the lab, his body stiff and sore. He hadn't slept well, if you could call it sleep at all. Every time he closed his eyes, visions of the artifact's energy surged through his mind, pulling him back into its grasp. When he finally opened his eyes, Lisa was already at work, furiously typing on a console while holographic displays floated around her like a swarm of fireflies. "You should eat something," she said without looking up, sensing his presence. "You're no good to anyone if you collapse." "I'm fine," Jack replied automatically, though his stomach growled in protest. He knew she was right, he needed to take care of himself, but there wasn't time for rest or food. Not when the clock was ticking down to disaster. Lisa sighed, but didn't argue. She handed him a protein bar anyway, which he reluctantly accepted. As he nibbled on it, she turned to face him, her expression serious. "We need to figure out why the shield keeps destabilizing. I've run simulations all night, and nothing adds up. Something is interfering with the artifact's energy field, but I can't pinpoint what." "Could it be the Vorthene?" Jack asked, his voice low. "Maybe they're already here, trying to disrupt us." "It's possible," Lisa admitted, "but we haven't detected any ships nearby yet. Whatever's causing this, it's closer than that." Her words sent a chill through Jack. If the problem wasn't external, then it had to be internal, something within Deltanine itself. But what? And who? Before they could explore the question further, alarms blared again, louder and more urgent than before. Red lights flashed overhead as automated voices announced another breach in the shield. Jack sprang to his feet, ignoring the wave of dizziness that washed over him. Without hesitation, he reached out mentally toward the artifact, stabilizing the barrier just in time to prevent a catastrophic failure. When the crisis passed, Lisa grabbed his arm, her grip firm. "You can't keep doing this, Jack. Every time you channel that much energy, it drains you further. We're running out of options." "I don't see another choice," Jack muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "If I stop, the shield collapses." "Then what?" Lisa hesitated, her eyes searching his face. "There might be another way, but it's risky." "What are you talking about?" Jack asked, frowning. "The artifact's power isn't just limited to creating shields," Lisa explained quickly. "It's capable of so much more: teleportation, energy manipulation, even communication across vast distances. What if we use it to send a message? A warning to Earth or other colonies? Someone needs to know what's happening here." Jack shook his head, doubt clouding his thoughts. "Even if we manage to send a message, it'll take days or weeks for reinforcements to arrive. By then, it could be too late." "Maybe," Lisa conceded, "but it's better than sitting here waiting for the shield to fail completely. At least we'd have backup coming." Jack wanted to argue, but deep down, he knew she was right. They couldn't rely solely on him to hold everything together. Reluctantly, he nodded. "Okay, let's try it." Over the next hour, Lisa worked feverishly to reconfigure the artifact's settings, programming it to broadcast a signal instead of maintaining the shield. Jack stood beside her, offering support whenever she needed it. Despite the urgency of the task, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every now and then, he glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. But the lab remained empty, except for them. Finally, Lisa stepped back, her hands trembling slightly. "It's ready," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Whenever you're ready, Jack." Taking a deep breath, Jack placed his hands on the artifact. Its warmth spread through him instantly, filling him with both strength and dread. Focusing his mind, he directed the energy outward, shaping it into a coherent signal. For a moment, everything seemed to go smoothly. The hum of the artifact grew louder, and a faint pulse of light radiated outward. Then, suddenly, something went wrong. The artifact's energy spiked uncontrollably, sending shockwaves rippling through the lab. Equipment short-circuited, sparks flying everywhere as alarms screamed in protest. Jack stumbled backward, clutching his head as pain shot through his skull. Through the chaos, he heard Lisa shouting his name, but her voice sounded distant, muffled. When the surge finally subsided, Jack collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. His vision swam, and his limbs felt like lead. Lisa knelt beside him, her face pale with worry. "Are you okay?" she asked, helping him sit up. "I think so," Jack rasped, though his body begged to differ. "Did it work?" Lisa checked the monitors, her fingers flying over the controls. After a tense moment, she nodded. "The signal's been sent. It'll reach Earth in a few hours. Hopefully, someone will pick it up." Despite the exhaustion weighing him down, Jack allowed himself a small smile. It wasn't much, but it was progress. For the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. Unfortunately, that hope was short-lived. Moments later, Commander Collins stormed into the lab, his face flushed with anger. Behind him trailed 2 soldiers, their weapons drawn. "What the hell did you do?" Collins demanded, pointing an accusing finger at Jack. "We sent a distress signal," Lisa interjected, stepping forward to shield Jack. "We needed help, Commander. You know as well as we do that we can't hold out much longer." Collins glared at her, his jaw tightening. "You acted without my authorization. Do you have any idea what kind of attention that signal could attract? If the Vorthan intercepted it, they're already coming?" Lisa snapped, her patience snapping under the strain. "Or have you forgotten that part? We're sitting ducks here, Commander. Either we fight back, or we die waiting for them to arrive." For a moment, Collins looked as though he might argue. Then, with visible effort, he reined in his temper. "Fine," he said curtly. "But from now on, every decision goes through me. Is that clear?" Lisa opened her mouth to protest, but Jack stopped her with a subtle shake of his head. Now wasn't the time to pick a fight. Instead, he forced himself to stand, meeting Collins's gaze squarely. "Understood, Commander." As Collins and his men left the lab, Lisa turned to Jack, frustration etched on her face. "This isn't right, Jack. He's treating us like pawns in his game." "He's scared," Jack replied quietly. "Just like everyone else. Fear makes people act irrationally." "And what about you?" Lisa asked, studying him closely. "Are you scared?" Jack hesitated, then nodded. "Of course I am, but fear doesn't change anything. All we can do is keep moving forward." His words seemed to calm her slightly, though the tension between them remained palpable. Over the next several hours, they focused on stabilizing the shield once again, knowing it was their only line of defense against the impending threat. Each attempt left Jack weaker, his connection to the artifact growing more tenuous with every passing moment. By late afternoon, the situation had grown dire. The shield flickered constantly, threatening to collapse entirely. Civilians began evacuating en masse, boarding shuttles bound for safer locations. Even Alex came by to check on Jack one last time before leaving. "You sure about this?" Alex asked, concern evident in his voice. "You don't have to stay behind, you know." "I know," Jack replied, forcing a weak smile. "But someone has to make sure the shield holds. Besides, where would I go?" Alex didn't answer. Instead, he gripped Jack's shoulder firmly, offering a silent show of support. Then, with a final nod, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. As night fell, Deltanine grew eerily quiet. Most of the civilians were gone, leaving only a skeleton crew of scientists and soldiers to defend the outpost. Jack sat, alone in the lab, staring at the artifact. Its glow pulsed softly, almost hypnotically, drawing him in. He wondered how much longer he could keep going, how much more he could endure before the artifact's power consumed him entirely. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke the silence, a metallic clang followed by muffled voices. Jack frowned, rising unsteadily to his feet. Grabbing a nearby tool for protection, he cautiously approached the door. Peering outside, he saw movement in the shadows, figures sneaking through the deserted corridors. At first he thought they were looters, scavenging whatever supplies remained. But as one of the figures stepped into the dim light, Jack froze. It wasn't a civilian, it was Commander Collins, flanked by several IDF officers. They moved stealthily, their faces grim with determination. Jack ducked back inside the lab, his heart pounding. Whatever Collins was planning, it wasn't good. Quietly, he locked the door and turned to Lisa, who had been monitoring the shield. "We've got trouble," he whispered urgently. "Collins is up to something." Lisa's eyes widened in alarm. "What do you mean?" "I think he's planning to take the artifact," Jack explained, his voice low. "He's probably realized we can't hold out much longer, and he wants to secure it for himself." Lisa stared at him, stunned. "He wouldn't dare." "Oh, he would," Jack said grimly. "And if he succeeds, we're finished."